It's a pleasure to be with you here in Melbourne with my dear friends Audrey Kitagawa and JJ Hertog. We've worked closely together before, and I love the energy that takes place when I work with Audrey and JJ. Audrey is a co-convenor with me on the World Commission on Global Consciousness, and we're also on the World Wisdom Council. And we've worked quite intensively around the planet on this kind of topic of awakening global consciousness and a global meditation. And JJ and I have worked also in other contexts, for example, in terms of uniting the highest level of science and spirituality and consciousness. And I think the combination of our three voices as a meditation, a global meditation, resonates well, I feel. So it's a pleasure to join them on this occasion. And this is a meditation, a global meditation. And that word global is a very powerful word. And you might wonder, what is a global meditation? And I'd like to just open by setting the context. Our meditation has already begun, because meditation, in whatever form we may approach it, really is the transformation of our awareness from a more ego-centered way of thinking and living and patterns of mind to moving into a deeper, integral, holistic space that has great dialogue power, integral, holistic power, if we enter into the fundamental field that all of our great religions and spiritual traditions have been urging us to enter into for millennia. And so one way to frame this meditation as an exercise, as a global meditation, is to realize that in the context of the World Parliament of Religions, World Parliament, bringing our great religions together, the word global has many connotations for us on the planet, obviously, in terms of economics and multinational corporations and so forth. But in spirituality and philosophy, it has a profound meaning of bringing our worlds together in the deepest form of dialogue and communication. That is opening the global lens of the mind. So a global meditation that I'd like to enter into with you and just go on a tour across our great spiritual, religious traditions on the planet to see that they are all urging us into this global awakening, this global lens of the mind. And it really is a different dimension of consciousness and living. Because when we step back from our particular orientation, most of us are not aware sufficiently that we are raised in our culture and religious world with a lens of the mind. And we interpret all of reality from that lens. And everything we see the other through the lens that we have. And most of us don't realize that that can become a profound issue at the very heart of religion and spirituality. Because when we step back from whatever lens we have, suppose I'm living in an American culture and I've been raised in the Judeo-Christian tradition, for example, the European space of mind space of discourse, I will see the world differently, perhaps, than someone who's raised in the Buddhist mind, someone who's in the Chinese culture, or someone who's in the space of Lao Tzu, or the Analects of Confucius, or someone who is in the yogic tradition of the Gita, of Vedanta, or someone who is in the Buddhist tradition of Shunyata and mindfulness, meditation, or Zen, or a Sufi person, for example, in the noble tradition of Islam, who would be seeing the world in terms of the space of the Quran, and so forth. But what one finds, if we can step back from whatever orientation we have, a secular one as well, of course, and open up space, a global space, in which we could see and dance across diverse worlds of spirituality and great scriptures across this planet, we see something astounding and remarkable in this dilated global space. And what I'd like to suggest is that if we could do that and look at what Lao Tzu is saying at the opening of his great text, the Tao Te Ching, the Tao that is named is not the Tao. Or if we go into the space of Om, of the Vedantic tradition, or read the Bhagavad Gita to understand the profound dialogue between Arjuna and Krishna, where Krishna is the voice of Om, who is speaking to Arjuna, the everyday warrior on the battlefield, or enter into the space of Buddha, or listen to the great origins of our noble Judaic tradition, where God is calling on Abraham to put God first, as all Israel, hear, O Israel. And Abraham has to struggle in this global way with, do I put my own agenda, my Isaac, my identity, above the call of the infinite word of Yahweh, or the magnificent work and life of Jesus, who's also calling us when we say that you've got to die to be born again. Something is going on. And Islam means to surrender, and so forth. I'm just getting examples. If we could step back from whatever orientation we have and dilate into a global space, then we would begin to see the amazing consensus emerging over centuries on this planet through our diverse religious, spiritual teachings and philosophical teachings. And that is what our meditation is going to try and enter into. I'd like to experimentally experience this with you, this journey into global space. It's a dimensional shift, because what is astounding, if you could listen to the global spiritual wisdom of this planet, one of the astounding, amazing insights that we get across the board is that we are as we mind. The reality we live in is a function of how we use our minds. And most of us don't pay sufficient attention to that. And that's what our meditation now is about. And Audrey and JG are going to take you ever deeper to build upon my opening meditation with you to help dilate this global sacred space of global spirituality. Because what one finds echoed across the planet in our spiritual traditions, we are as we mind. And if we ego mind, if we're centered and ensnared and entangled within ego mental patterns of consciousness, we may not realize it, but we break the connection and circuits with the deeper space of the field of reality that our great teachers have been urging us as an all-important matter to enter into. This is what Buddha is doing. This is what Krishna is calling. This is what Jesus is modeling. This is what Abraham struggles with. This is what Muhammad is bringing forth in terms of surrender to God, to what is highest in the Abrahamic tradition, for example, just to mention a few examples. So as we enter this meditation now, this was just to warm us up to realize that a global meditation is a mindful meditation that helps us move in this dimensional shift, a dilation of our hearts and mind in opening a global sacred space. And the deep insight that emerges across our great spiritual traditions is that reality, in encountering what is primordial and first, all of these traditions recognize that there is that which is infinite as a source of all life. Whatever name we use, whether we call it Yahweh, or emptiness, Shunyata, or Om, or Tao, or Allah, or Christ, or energy as the ultimate stuff of the universe in science, whatever name we use, the consensus is that reality is a field, a unified, holistic field of the infinite force. And this infinite force means infinite connectivity and infinite unity. Not ego unity, but infinite unity, which opens boundless diversity. The infinite has infinite space for abysmal individuality and diversity and difference and multiple pathways into this sacred space. But if we could enter into this sacred space of global spirituality and dilate the mind, the heart, and the lens of the mind, which is required beyond the ego mind, this is what our meditation will be. So come with me, please, in the short moments. I'll have about 12-15 minutes at most of my time to just get us started. I'd like to take you on this journey by looking at our great teachers across the planet, selected ones, to see how they're urging us into this global spiritual awakening and opening up of global sacred space. If, for example, we look at Buddha's teaching, where he, as a Hindu prince, went into profound spiritual experiments and then entered into his magnificent awakening and distilling it in the Four Noble Truths, what we find is right on this topic, that existence, ego existence, and by the way, just visualize with me in this meditation, we're on this journey now into deep awakened global space. When we speak an ego word, I will use single strokes to mark it, to indicate, I'll hold this up visually for you, that means that's the ego mind. And when we go into the deeper, integral, holistic, global space, in a global meditation, I'll use double parentheses to mark that infinite space where everything is seen to be interconnected. So Buddha is speaking the Four Noble Truths, which are global in power, that existence is suffering, It has a cause, clinging to the ego. We have a choice. We can change our mind operating process from egoing and dilate through mindful practices in every aspect of our lives, the Eightfold Path, to awaken our minds, to enter the space of emptiness where we can experience the Dharma, the moral awakened law of interconnectivity and passion. This is what Krishna is teaching Arjuna in the yoga science of the Bhagavad Gita, the pathways of letting go of the ego structure that generates wars and fragmentation, to take Arjuna step by step as he takes himself to let go and surrender the ego mind and the ego lens and move as a martial artist into the awakened space that Gandhi sought to bring to the planet, in Satya power, the awakened power of Krishna consciousness. And this is really what Abraham is facing in this meditation. Imagine the call of the infinite word, the Yahweh, to Abraham. Place me first, love me above all. First things first. And that tells every human being, don't put your own agenda first. You love your Isaac, a metaphor for yourself. You have to let it go in order to honor what is higher. And this is what Abraham is doing as a great global moment, to set the model of what is first must be honored as first. And certainly this is what Moses is bringing with the law, and this is what Jesus magnificently modeled for us when he said, I am the way, the truth, and the life. And all of the rituals he introduced were rites of passage and letting go of the ego mind, of the ego space, and to recognize across these teachings that when we ego, we fragment, we break the connectivity. And when we can go into the global meditation that Audrey and JJ will build on this to move us further, what one experience is an I-thou space. You recognize yourself in the other. And this is where moral consciousness comes, when you can actually experience yourself in the other. So this is all important, this global meditation. And we begin to see from our great teachings that the crisis we face in every aspect of our planet now traces to the dominance of ego minding on this planet. Our cultures continue to be dominated by ego thinking and ego patterns, creating fragmentations, polarizations, and all kinds of violence and dysfunctions. And our magnificent teachers across the planet, spiritual teachers, have been urging us to step into a more mature, integral, awakened global space, global spirituality, where we become fully human and can recognize the compassionate sacredness of our space in ourselves and others. That's moral consciousness. That's religious awakening. And I think this World Parliament is at the cusp of a magnificent shift on this planet. We're in the shift, middle of a shift, it seems to many of us, from ego-based cultures to awakened global consciousness and spirituality. And our great religions have a magnificent central role to play in realizing the source we come from and go into that common source. I use the word logosophia, and perhaps JJ will talk about this. The logosophia, both the male-female principles are in this logosophia as a global name. And out of this is where all of our great religions and scripts come. That's one of the disclosures of a global meditation on the source of the script, which is global and infinite. And all of our great scripts and all of our sciences come out of this space. So the great evolutionary shift now on the planet is to mature from ego-based consciousness and living, including our religious life, to awaken global consciousness where our great scriptures have been urging us and our great teachers. Thank you so much for listening, and I'll turn this over to Audrey and JJ. Thank you.